flood your body with all of this life force, this aliveness, this turn on that creates a beautiful, healthy, gorgeous, throbbing response in the body. And we are in control of that. We can create that. Maybe we cannot change the violence that is occurring in the world that we live, but we can choose exquisite self-care and self-pleasure.
Welcome to Clitorology, intelligent information about women's sexual health from leading experts in the field. I'm Jacqueline Buckingham, founder of the Women's Intimate and Sexual Health Foundation, CEO of Huge Pussy, the activist brand changing the meaning of pussy, and your host. Every week, I bring you the top physicians, plastic surgeons, sex therapists, gynecologists, psychologists, our nation's chief clitorologists, and the most renowned medical experts and thought leaders in the field of women's sexual health. We'll also talk about intimacy and how to have your best sex life, because we know sexual health is connected to mental health and longevity. Having intelligent information means a better life for us all. But women's sexual health has some catching up to do. So it's time to tap into your huge pussy energy and get ready for class, because learning about women's sexual health is healthcare. Welcome to your new favorite subject. This is Clitorology. Today, my guest is a legend. Regena Thomashauer is the New York Times bestselling author of Pussy or Reclamation, a feminist icon, and the creatrix of the School of Womanly Arts. In a world where female empowerment is more important than ever, her insights are a beacon of light and have been for decades. She shares her own self-care rituals, boundary-setting techniques that promise to transform the way you navigate the world and embrace your womanly arts. Here we go. Let's dive on in with Regena Thomashauer. I am really so honored that you're here. And as I just did in my intro, I've talked about how much of a legend you are in the world and all of the incredible contributions you've made to womanhood in general. I feel like you have lifted an entire gender and therefore lifted this whole world. And I couldn't be more honored to be here with you today.
Thank you, my love. I think we're doing the co-lift though. You're hauling your end, I'm hauling my mind, and we're meeting in the middle here. Thank you for that intro though. I take it in, I appreciate it, and fuck yes, it is all true.
I was just saying that I watched an interview of you that you did, I think it was about 10 years ago. And you started with a dance break. I believe it was TED in the financial district. And I watched a video of you and you got everybody dancing, which was so fun to watch. And especially in the financial district, I have to say. Then, what you noted was that it's not just about okay, hey, we get up and dance, but you connected it to actually the science of it and why it feels good, why it's necessary. And I loved that so much because on this show, we talk to mostly doctors and we're talking a lot about physiology, but I really wanted to talk to you about bridging that gap to how we feel in our bodies, why it's so important on the sensual side. And I was hoping that you could say a few words about that.
Think about how just like fucking stressful it is for each of us to get through a day in this life. I mean, we are handling pressure from work and deadlines, many of us with kids or parents that we're looking after, partners, extended communities, any kind of, churches, synagogues, community centers that we're part of that have, relevant actions for us to take on the regular. We have, and then there's the news the world that is in so much heartbreaking crisis right now, that what happens to a woman's nervous system is your body gets flooded with cortisol, which is the stress hormone, aka root of all disease. And and that's before we get out of bed in the morning. I don't know about you, but I wake up so cranky. Like, you do not want to know me in the morning. Like, I am one cranky bitch. We have this option called pleasure, which, pleasure is accessible through so many vehicles. Like dance break is one of them. It's hugely pleasurable. Any kind of sensual experience, which, could be a sexual experience, but not limited. It could be that perfect cup of steamy coffee that I look forward to making for myself in the morning. It could be watching a sunrise. It could be a bath. It could be just like simply, feeling your own flesh, like choosing to love your own flesh. And what happens when a woman chooses pleasure, and I'm speaking specifically to women here because a woman's body is designed for pleasure. We have a clitoris, 8,000 nerve endings that are dedicated to pleasure. So what that means is if you're not making 8,000 of your decisions every day that relate to your pleasure, 8,000 of your dreams, 8,000 of your desires, then you're not living the full design of what it means to be a woman, because we cannot live our fullness without pleasure. And what happens is when you have a dance break or an orgasm or a beautiful heavenly cup of your favorite tea while watching the sunrise, what happens when you choose to plug in to pleasure is you turn on all your neurotransmitters, including beta endorphin, prolactin, serotonin. So suddenly you're interrupting the cortisol bath with this bath of all of this pleasurable experience that turns on these neurotransmitters, flood your body with all of this life force, this aliveness, this turn on that creates a beautiful, healthy, gorgeous, throbbing response in the body. And we are in control of that. We can create that. We cannot change the violence that is occurring in the world that we live, but we can choose exquisite self-care and self-pleasure to keep us centered as we are holding all that is. So I think, like, there's no excuses, sisters. Like, you got to plug into your pleasure or you're hosed in this life.
I could not agree more. And I do feel it is so important to do those pleasure practices, the ones you mentioned. There's the very simple things. I think we can make it more difficult, make it into something that is like too much of a hurdle to get to. It can happen so quickly. That's what I love about the practices that you talk about in your book. We have to be connected to our bodies, like you said. I mean, the functions that are just purely biological are the ones that we almost make it a hurdle to get to because they have so much societal stigma around them. How have you seen that change in your, let's just say, the trajectory of the past 20 years? Have you seen women making pleasure more of a priority, or do you feel like it's about status quo?
Oh my goddess. No, it's, I'm so ecstatic to brag about the fact that my work has influenced literally hundreds of thousands of women. And it began literally with an experience of pleasure that I had that lifted me from being like the most depressed, disenfranchised, suicidal, disconnected product of, a childhood with abuse patterning in my family, to the leader of the pleasure revolution. And it was the experience of pleasure that changed everything. It changed everything for me. Like all the lights went on. And so it's so funny how women are. We are so generous. Like the second we find something that we like, we tell everybody. We just want everyone to know it. I mean, think about that Barbie movie this summer. Suddenly everybody was going to Barbie, and we were all wearing pink at the Barbie movie because we were so excited. We were so excited that there was like a little tear in the patriarchal world culture where we were actually acknowledging the way women experience life inside of a patriarchal world culture. And it was done with fun and humor. It was kind of adorable and saucy, and you could bring your kid. So it was blissful. But how many people did I tell about that movie? I went on my Instagram. I brought people. I went with my girlfriends. I went with my partner. I took my mother. So we do that as women. When there's something extraordinary, we want to tell everybody. And that's what happened to me. Once I experienced pleasure, really deep, reverential pleasure, it was like, whoa, a woman choosing pleasure only for herself, not worrying about pleasuring her kids, her husband, her boss, her family, her parents, but choosing to pleasure herself. It changes time and space. It changes.
What a concept.
Oh my goodness. It was so huge for me that I just had to write 4 books and start the School of Womanly Arts, and, but we do what we have to do. And we have sisterhood. We love our sisters. We all want to rise. One of us rises, we're all going.
We do. And you really speak to a mindset. And I've got a couple pleasure practices that I do daily that I love and that I feel so much of my own mindset to. But how do you feel about someone who is not plugged in to that pleasure? How would you say is the first way that you would introduce the importance of pleasure?
Well, first, I want to know what your little pleasure practices are so we could share them with your audience and
I would
beyond.
love to share them.
Tell me everything.
I'll share this one with you. And this one has to do with actually the pleasure that your body feels when it takes in food. I love food. I love food of all kinds, but I really have a thing for Newman's Own cookies. And when I realized this, I was at a point where I was like, so why not make that part of your daily routine? So I meditate every morning, and I do it before I look at my phone or anything else. I talk to my daughter, of course, but if she's not here, then I don't talk to anyone. I just go right into my meditation. But in order to condition my cells, if you will, I have a Newman's Own cookie and my cup of hot tea. And when I dip that Newman's cookie into that hot tea, something just incredible happens. And it really turns on all of my receptors. And basically what it does in a mindset frame is it reminds me how sweet life is and that we have so much to enjoy. And so whatever it is during the day, and I do a thing that's a follow-up at night, but whatever it is during the day, it just kind of preps all my cells for receiving all that is good, receiving all that is sweet.
Okay, what flavor is your Newman's cookie?
Numinos. They're Numinos, yeah. I like the originals. I've had the mint. I've had the chocolate. But the original is just, and even though I have them every day, it's still this great feeling. And that's the mindset part. I've done a lot of mindset work, and I've done a lot of mindset training from various places. And I'm always amazed by how we can choose something like that and then have it stick.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. And you know what is so beautiful about that? Women are so receptive to pleasure, right? That we don't even need to be having pleasure to have pleasure. Like I can get off on you and your cookie and your tea. And I could like feel all the feelings. I'm like, oh yeah. Like, and it's kind of holy because it's your connection. It's like your communion. You know, you're taking in the sweetness of life. Yeah. It's not a cookie. It's like a holy act of reclaiming the sweetness of life every single morning. You know, so for
exactly
a beginner, you know, one just wants to think about like, what are those little tiny things that make us feel beautiful, reminding us of the sacredness of life, because that's what pleasure does.
It really does. We have such a discrepancy. Like, I'll just use an example, the orgasm gap. Such a discrepancy in terms of our entitlement to pleasure, our entitlement even to that cookie, our entitlement to that orgasm, our entitlement to taking the rest to watch the sunrise. And yet we know from medical journals that it is extremely important to our health. How do you teach the people who come to you about the entitlement part, that you deserve it, that you're worthy of this time? How do you do that?
If somebody listening to this podcast is truly interested in kind of studying pleasure and the art and science of pleasure, then they should like jump and sign up for my mailing list, which is www.mamagenas.com, MAMAGENAS.com. And I have so many free, beautiful, sweet little kind of succinct, attainable, free classes and giveaways, little things that will just sort of light the pathway of pleasure and begin to awaken a woman's sense of her own worth and her own value and the privilege of being born a woman. She who bleeds but does not die and gives life. I mean, that's what we are. And I also teach a 6-week course called Virtual Pleasure Boot Camp. That thing is it's literally, it is your boot camp, and you need to show up for your pleasure. And if you don't, you know, you are not going to get the value, not just out of boot camp, but out of your life. Because we are wired for pleasure, women know when they are not living their fullness. Like there'll be a sense of depression or disconnection or disapproval or disenfranchisement. And she'll know that there is something missing, that no matter what kind of great job she has, no matter if she gets married and has kids and lives the so-called dream, without a deep connection to what brings her joy, what enlivens her, what lights her up, what connects her to her own erotic sovereignty, her erotic aliveness, she's not living the design of what it means to be a woman. She's not living her true potential. And every woman can feel that. You know, you can feel it when you are turned on and tuned in, like a woman who owns her pussy, owns her life. And if she doesn't, she doesn't. And that's how
I love that.
Whenever I teach a class, whether it's for 30 women or 3,000 women, I'll always ask, what did your bits and pieces get called? What was that part of you called? And I will get hundreds of responses. People will say, oh, mine was called a coochie. It was a purse. My hoo-ha, my wee-wee hole, my front bottom.
Oh boy.
You know, there's so many crazy names. And then half of women, normally, they don't even have a name. It was just nothing. There's the vagina people. But the vagina people are missing it too, because you can't see your vagina except with a speculum, you know. So we don't have the language for that which is most essentially feminine about ourselves, the heart and beating soul of our femininity. I call it pussy. My most recent book was called Pussy, a Reclamation. But the technical term is vulva. we don't even give our girls the language to just, to relate. And what happens when you can't name something, when there is no language that we share, shame moves in and replaces connection. When we know that there's something about us that can't even be named, that is so essential to who we are, then we feel very ashamed of ourselves and our bodies. And wherever there's shame, there's powerlessness. It gives rise to women not actually owning their bodies. And then, of course, if we don't own our bodies, someone else does.
Yeah. And it is the word pussy, because I don't know of too many other people who have that close of a relationship with the word as you do.
I just chose it because it's the only word that makes women happy when they say it. I've been teaching for 30 years and working with live rooms of women and teaching tens of thousands of women. And, when they say the word vulva, they just go, meh, vulva. But when a woman says pussy, it brings out her naughty, her aliveness. She feels a little uncomfortable. She feels a little bold, like she's breaking loose from something. So it's a fun word. It's a word that creates a lot of fun.
It does. And yet so many people are very uncomfortable with it.
If you think about it, it's like one of the most pejorative words in our language. If you wanted to hurt a man or a woman or insult them and make them feel powerless, you call them a pussy. You pussy! You couldn't get that goal in the goal cage. You're such a pussy. It's like, who wants to be a pussy, right? That's so insulting. And it's also a word that's been used to objectify women and make them feel humiliated and hurt and ostracized. And it's a word in which we have the power now to reclaim, should we choose to do that. And that's what my work is about, is the reclamation of that sassy little word.
Absolutely. Well, if you call someone a pussy in my home, it is the biggest compliment you can give them, because we've redefined it, and I did this with my daughter, to mean an orgasmic, otherworldly, resilient, flexible, life-giving humanity vessel. I am literally surrounded by things that say pussy around me, and it makes me very happy. Oh yes,
that's so
absolutely.
Great. That's beautiful.
So incredibly important. Okay, I did one of your exercises the other day, which I absolutely loved, and I heard you talk about it in one of your videos, where someone gives you a compliment, and then instead of deflecting that compliment, you say, "Thank you. It's true." Could we try that? Could we just do a few of your exercises? I want to bring your exercises like home, like so people understand what your work is about. So I'll be your guinea pig.
I am going to praise you and celebrate you. And I actually created this exercise because I noticed that working with all these women, that every time I'd watch a woman compliment another woman, or I would compliment a woman, I'd be like, "You look so hot today. I love that dress." And she would say, "Oh, this whole thing? Oh, God, I was just thinking of, I should throw it out." Like, I don't know. Why do we always deflect compliments? Why can't we receive compliments? And then I don't like to go down the road of why. I think it's the road to hell. So I thought, why don't we just redo it and teach women how to really receive all that life wants to offer them? So the exercise started in the mastery classroom, and I had two women face each other, much like you and I are doing right now. And one would stand in front of the other and then just compliment whatever it was that she thought was beautiful about that woman. And the woman could only say the words, "Thank you, it's true." So here we go. So, Jacqueline, I want to say that your hair is so lush and so beautiful and shiny and delicious. I just want to run my hands through it.
Thank you. It's true.
And you have this like beautiful, smooth skin, almost like light, peachy tone to your flesh. That's so lovely.
Thank you. It's true. Okay, Regena, I love the beautiful clothing you wear on camera, especially when it is these incredible, lacy, beautiful outfits that show off your extremely beautiful form.
Thank you. It's true.
I love your hair when it is so luscious and wavy, like it looks like you were just by the ocean.
Thank you. It's true. The reason I love this exercise of the thank you, it's true, is because it's something we can practice and then pass on. We can pass it on to our moms, our daughters, our girlfriends, our aunts, our grandmas. You know, it's so easy, but it actually creates a big reframe where a woman sees another woman who is willing to receive a praise and a compliment. And when she sees that, she's like, oh, I could do that. Because truth is, the only reason we push compliments away, how did we learn that? We learned it from watching other women push compliments away. But another practice that I love to do, and I do at every single class I teach, and I do it not just at class, but I'll do it at dinner parties because I think it's a really nice way for people to get to know each other. I will ask everyone to give me a brag. And a brag is, it's not being boastful. It's not like trying to make yourself sound better than you are. Okay. It's not about, you know, whatever, pretending to be great. It's just truing up to what is. And the truth is, we are all magnificent, and we create miracles on the daily. And so when you hear somebody in a very humble way actually stand for their own greatness, it's very moving and wonderful. So I'd love for you to give me a brag. My darling sister goddess Jacqueline, brag to me.
I will say that I am so proud of the mother I am because I get to witness in my daughter how great she is and how much she can celebrate herself.
Okay, that's beautiful. And what is it about you that just like gave you, like, that inspired her so much? Like, what was it about you and the woman that you are that created that outcome in your daughter?
I would say that it is my connection to the gratitude I have for being a woman. Beautiful,
beautiful, beautiful. That is so well bragged and so well mothered and so well womaned. All the things. Really, really gorgeous brag. Well done. Anybody who's listening to this podcast, you can just do bragging with your girlfriends or guy friends. Because when I do this at my, dinner parties or things like that, guys are there too, and they love to celebrate themselves. I think that actually men are way more accustomed to self-celebration than women are. And it's just fun. It's fun to hear about the greatness of each other and celebrate it. But I would say my brag is that I have this practice when I'm at my beach house, which I am right now with my partner. Every morning at 7 a.m., we get on our bikes, well, a little bit before 7, no matter what the weather is. We put our bathing suits on, dry robe over it, bike to the beach, and we go swimming in the ocean with a bunch of other polar bears. And we do a polar plunge, and then we bike home, jump in the hot tub, and then we usually have like a little hot, sexy time before the day begins. It's like,
oh my God, that's amazing.
Isn't it? It's a fun way to start the day. I feel proud of my discipline and practice that I'm doing that in the morning at 7 a.m. And that I found some crazy friends that like to do it as well. And then I'm also really proud of the fact that I make time for pleasure with my man and intimacy and connection, and that our sensual life is a huge priority for both of us. And so we will create dates really every day. There is some time for some kind of sensual connection between the two of us.
It's beautiful. Really, really amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
So how do you feel about the orgasm gap?
A lot of my work is about closing that gap, because I think that it's so important for women. You might be out on a date with a guy, right? Chatty, 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 or, you know, guy or woman, you're chatty, chatty, chatty at the restaurant, chatty, chatty, chatty on the way home, chatty, chatty, chatty when you're having your little glass of wine on the couch at home and you're thinking about maybe opening up another sensual world. And then, damn, as soon as you get in bed with a new lover, a new partner, the chatty goes away. No directions given.
Yeah.
And then you kind of wait there and you hope that your brand new lover knows what the hell they're doing. And 50-50 if anyone knows what's going on. So I think it's really important for a woman to learn her instrument and learn her body, because there's no way that a partner can be expected to close the quote unquote orgasm gap if the woman hasn't closed it herself. You know, if she has to be willing to put her key in her own ignition, turn that baby on, take it down the highway, and then she can invite passengers. Then and only then. So it's and it's key. It's super, super important. You know, to learn your body, like even, you know, right now, just learning, are you a woman that likes a light touch? I love a light touch. Or are you somebody that likes a little flap? Or are you somebody that likes a deep, firm, squishy touch? Like learning what your body wants.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to depend on the mind reading properties of your lover. You can actually turn to your lover and say, you know, hey, lady, or hey, dude, so great to have you here. You know what turns me on so much is when you take your hand and you just lightly caress my entire body for hours. That turns me on so much, or minutes, or whatever it is. Because we all have a little recipe that allows us to relax in bed or, you know, find our way. And sisters, you wouldn't expect your lover to be able to like find their way to the 7-Eleven without the GPS guiding them. You know, why not give directions about your own body? For women, it's really our work to really learn. And then I have to say, I have never found a man or a woman lover of mine that has been uninterested in pleasing me. Yeah. I have only had experiences where my partners have been delighted to, oh, wow, you like that, Regena? You think you like to be, because I love adjectives. I love praise and words of affirmation. I love that. So, you know, when I tell my lovers that, then they can give that to me, and then I'm happy, and then they're happy that I'm happy, and then we're all happy, and then we've had a great time, and there is no orgasm gap.
Well, you touched on something that I think is extremely important for women, which is knowing how to turn your own self on, which that's, I mean, my goodness, couldn't come up, be talking to a better person about that. Knowing what you like so you can ask for it, so you can give those directions to the 7-Eleven. Because we can't depend on our partners to be mind readers. And certainly, if we don't know what makes us happy, how are they supposed to know? This is something that you talk about in your book, which I've got this underlined right here. And you say, clitoracy is a road she must travel herself in the company of her sisters. Women must teach other women about orgasmic potential, because if we try to learn it from men whose bodies are simply different from our own, we will not get very far. And not very far is where most women in the world are today. I love that so much. Women must teach other women about orgasmic potential. How do we do that?
Take my classes, read my books. I've already charted the course. I have lit the lamp beside the golden door. I think that when women give each other permission, I think it's super hard to just like take a book or and sit there at home alone and try to connect. Although I have to say it is not impossible. And I have had students that are so self-motivated. They have been truly able to do that. Not to mention there's that great app, I think it's OMGES, that teaches you can learn on your phone how to stroke a pussy. It's so good. So you can do a lot with books and apps. But I think there is nothing like sisterhood of women sharing information, getting comfortable together, giving each other permission to learn and explore and expand their experience of themselves sensually. I think that's probably how it was always, all this information pre-patriarchy, was passed mother to daughter, sister to sister. It's just, since the patriarchal world religions in the past few thousand years that we've lost, our way in terms of connecting sister to sister, woman to woman. We can learn and allow ourselves to grow into women who feel free. Because when a woman owns her sexual sovereignty, she just feels free and relaxed and herself in ways that nothing else can give her.
I also love how you get into some biology, you get into some science. You talk about the clitoris. We don't really pass that down to our daughters so much like, hey, you have this thing that's got all these nerve endings, go enjoy. How do you think that as mothers, we should be talking to our daughters about pleasure?
When I was raising my daughter, she's now 25, she and I used to take baths together. She knew where her clitoris was and what her clitoris was from the time she was 2 years old. One of the most important things that we can do as parents is not be limited by the ways we were raised. I think when I grew up, my bits and pieces were called a sissy, which I'm imagining was relating to peeing. And also my mother was very traumatized by her mother around her period. So she wasn't comfortable teaching me about my neck. And I can remember when I first got my period and I shared that with her and my aunt came over, my aunt slapped me on the face, which apparently is some kind of ritual that people do. But it was great. It really shocked me. And the whole thing was so uncomfortable for me I was on the swim team and my mother said I wasn't permitted to wear tampons. So I had to wear when I would have races, I'd have to wear a sanitary pad, with rubber pants. Kind of rubber panties on top of that under my swimsuit. Thank God for the other women on the swim team, who came to my rescue and they were like, Regena, you could lose those things. And if you could, and I remember one of them stood outside the bathroom stall and kind of guided me to learn how to use a tampon so I didn't have to wear that whole getup. On the swim team. So I think that there is a lot of repression that we inherit from the generations before us very often. Sometimes not. Sometimes, you have an easier ride than that. But then it becomes our obligation to become pleasure researchers and learn about our bodies, learn about how, just seriously like scientists, just learning the basic science.
Yes.
And then passing it on to our kids. I also think it's super important for moms and dads to teach boys about clitorises. They're crucial if the boy is hetero, they're crucial in a boy's life. And I think it's super important for moms and dads to teach girls about penises and because, if they're hetero, that'll be part of their life too. So a nice, easy way to go is just learning about the body the way you would teach your kid about your hand or your arm or your brain or any other relevant body part.
Exactly. That's how I feel. I feel like these are just parts. The more we just treat it like what it is, the better.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank God that we have this ability to feel pleasure. And so why would we not do it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I am just so grateful for every word you've ever spoken and every word you've ever written and where it all comes from. It really, it's true. It's really true. And I love learning about how these things are scientifically proven. You know, it's proven that gratitude does change our mindset. And I've heard you talk about gratitude, and gratitude is the evening practice I have, my morning pleasure practice. I've got an evening practice, and I write down things that I'm grateful for in the day. And my daughter and I actually do an evening gratitude prayer before we eat.
That's so great. How old is she?
She's 17.
That's great. How cool. So
and
much
I know
fun.
You have a daughter too. Yeah.
25.
Can you talk a little bit about your gratitude practices and the ones that you teach?
Yeah, I do. I teach this one, and which is called a Holy Trinity. And my sister goddesses, the students that take my work, do these. We do them every single day or more than once a day. And a Holy Trinity is a brag, a gratitude, and a desire. And the three of those things wrapped up together are so powerful because they really plug a woman. First, she plugs into her turn on by bragging about herself. Then she plugs into the holy with her gratitude. And then she gets to lay out a desire, you know, because women's desires are so potent, so important, so ever changing, ever expanding. And a woman's really, I consider one of my tasks as a leader is to really fan the flames of women's desires wherever I encounter them, because the world is hungry for new ideas, and the voice of woman is the greatest untapped natural resource on this planet. And one of the great practices is a Holy Trinity. So it's a brag, a gratitude, and a desire all together. And then you get to, you know, really connect with that beautiful eternal part of yourself every single day.
And would you do those in a row like that?
Yeah.
A brag,
yeah.
a gratitude, and a desire?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you do an example?
Oh, I'm going to brag that I'm working on a brand new book, and I'm on, I'm working with an editor to help create the first thing you do is you work on a book proposal. And today was a first meeting where we gelled. I was like, this is what I think it is. And she's like, that's it. I agree with you. We're there. So it was like, I'm really grateful. That felt so good. And I'm also grateful to be working with my editor that I worked with on my fourth book, Pussy, a Reclamation, because she knows my work really well. So it just makes everything flow. So I'm really grateful to Kelly. And my desire is, that velocity of feeling that I was feeling like this week as I've been working on the book, because I'll work on it every morning from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. That velocity of feeling continues, and that I can get, and let's say maybe in the next 2 months, I'd love to finish the proposal in 2 months or even less. That would be my desire. And that it lands in the perfect publisher at the perfect time, and it's under grace. Allow yourself to plug into your erotic aliveness with the bragging, with the gratitude, and with the desire. Because when you are plugged in, that just gives legs and energetic, expansion to whatever it is you long for. Plus, it's fun.
I know you mentioned it already, but just for your upcoming courses, your upcoming workshops.
It's mamagenas.com with an S, MAMAGENAS.com. And everything is there.
Great.
But you can follow me on Instagram. I do really fun Instagram posts. And so it's Mama Gena on Instagram. And then I am somebody, if you want to be in touch with me, just DM me, which is a little way of messaging each other on Instagram, because I read all my DMs and I love to respond to people and I love to connect with people. I have amazing courses. When a woman comes to me, she has a calling. She has like a deep sense of, this is my next step. And those are the women that I want to reach. A woman who feels like it's time for me to awaken that slumbering part of my feminine, to awaken my sensual light in this lifetime, to not stay shut down, but to be a woman that is turned on and tuned in and standing in her power and using her voice in this world. I want to thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I just want to thank our listeners, sponsors, subscribers, and founding members of this show who believe in furthering the field of women's sexual health. If you're loving clitorology as much as I am and want to support our continued mission to bring you intelligent information about women's sexual health from leading experts in the field, go to clitorology.com and follow us on social media at Clitorology. It's my pleasure to bring you the top medical expertise and thought leadership that's furthering women's sexual health at no cost to make sure that you're intelligently informed, because learning about women's sexual health is healthcare. This has been your favorite subject. See you next time on Clitorology.